Hey, what up? Had a fun little road trip back in town. Finally got some parts that I've been waiting for a while. So here we go. This is a half taken apart rival MT10. Just gonna talk about a few of the things about this. I've had this one for 2 or 3 years, maybe 2 years. I don't know. I've driven it a lot. This is how much I've driven it. If you can see that piece there, that's supposed to be nice and straight. I'm gonna replace those drive cups. Unfortunately, you gotta get 2 different sets to do that. One drive cup comes with the center differential kit. The other cup comes with the out drive shaft and pinion set. So again, one downside with this truck is anything you need, you can't get on its own. You gotta get it in a little kit with other stuff. But these are the 2 you need to do either ends of the drive shaft. So I'm gonna replace those, and while I'm at it, I might as well rebuild those diffs. We got all the parts, so why not? The main thing I've been waiting for is this, the gearbox. And this has been a bit of a weak point on this truck. So this is the front gearbox. You can see how this is all broken here. That's happened this is the 3rd or 4th time that's happened to me on this. Usually happens when you're bashing around on concrete, which, you know, it's gonna break anything eventually, but these things are really tough. And this is a bit of a weak point here. It's really, you can see this one's not broken. This goes in here like that. These things screw through here. And the whole front clip basically is held on by these 2 little things, and then these 4 here and those ones. So let's fix that. Let's put in new drive cups, new stuff, make sure that's all nice and smooth. I also have a RPM replacement for this front skid plate that's on the way, might be here soon. If it gets here in time, we'll put that on too. RPM is nice and strong. These are RPM arms. The RPM stuff is really tough. So I'm interested to see if it works any better, because I've broken a few of these pieces also, because what happens is once you break that, this can flex a little bit, and then this flexes, and then you usually break one of these arms off. And then the steering can pop out, and it's a whole cascade of effects from there. Maybe a RPM piece with a little more strength would prevent this from having so much torque and pressure on it too, and force, and help that be a little stronger. I don't know. Anyway, so if we get that in here, I'll put that on here and do a little comparison. Of course, as soon as I put everything back together, this showed up. So I'm gonna take everything back apart again, take this nice fresh one off, and put this one on. So we'll do that at the end of the video, and then see how that all fits and everything. Okay, so we got the whole gearbox out. There's the broken piece, and there's the new piece that isn't broken. Here's the nice new drive cup, and there's my old drive cup. So pretty worn out. The one on the back is probably similar, and we got this diff rebuild kit that has that, and then probably throw a new spur gear on there too. Pinion or whatever kind of gear here, bevel gear. It's held on with a little Allen head screw, wow, I think a 1.5 mil, and it gets all covered with grease, so you can't really see that there's actually a screw there. So if you're like, what the hell, I can't figure out how to take this apart, there's a screw under all that grease. Just pull that out, and then that'll slide off, and you can pull your beat old piece out and put a nice fresh one in. This is a really important screw to Loctite. Make sure you clean the screw, try to clean that out a little bit with degreaser or something, and put some good Loctite on that and let it set up real well before you drive it, because you don't want that to come loose and fall apart inside the diff. And if you're real smart, you'll remember to get new bearings before you do this, so you can put all new bearings in it too, but bearings are still in okay shape, so we're just gonna use them again. All right, let's put that back together and then start on the rear one. All right, I've got this back in there, and all that's ready to go until those parts get here. But I was looking at this broken piece. Hopefully you can see that with this camera, but the threads on this actually don't go all the way down to the bottom. and it looks like there's enough space to fit a slightly longer screw. So I have these ones here, which are just a little bit longer. So hopefully I can use those, and these screws will go all the way to the bottom, which might make it a little stronger, less likely to break. We'll see. And if I have to, I can put a washer on the top, I think. So these are the screws I'm talking about, the ones that come through right here, the ones that bolt this whole front piece on right here. So if you make that a little bit longer, that should be a little bit stronger. Okay, well, it turns out this might be a little more effing around than I was planning on. Not sure if you're gonna be able to see this in the video, but the chassis is cracked right along here and here. So I gotta swap the whole damn chassis over. Luckily I have one, because I needed it for some other part, and the only way to get it was to order the whole thing. So, alright, well, here we go. This has got a lot more to do. Here's the center diff. Probably should have checked before I just ordered a second cup, because this one is not that bad. Still gonna replace it. The new one is nice and fresh, and I got it all anyways. But that was actually in pretty good shape. So yeah, just the front one was bad. And this spur, you can see these teeth are in pretty bad shape. This one I thought was actually gonna fail a lot sooner than it did. You can see those teeth there are flattened out, and then those teeth there are kind of flattened out. But it keeps going. Anyways, time to get to work. Alright, well, got all the stuff off this chassis, and while I had this off, I thought I would just take a look at this M2C plate after I've had a few months, half a year or so of using it. It looks really good. No chipping or cracking or anything. It looks pretty much perfect. So, and it hasn't loosened off at all. It's totally solid still. So, yep, happy with that. Here's a quick little update from the other car on that M2C plate. This one isn't in quite as good a shape. You can see it's starting to separate just a little bit at the end here. The panels are sort of expanding at the bottom. Kind of feel. So one of them is in perfect shape. The other one's a little beat. And maybe I over tightened that? I don't know. That's not great. But God, it's a lot of stuff. You don't realize how many little things, little metal piece that goes in there. Make sure you don't lose that if you ever have to switch your chassis. That's really important. There's all these screws in the back side here that hold this piece down. This is the other half of the motor mount, and that goes in there like that. You need to have all those screws out. And these, I'm putting in a little bit longer screw, which is at the front there. So that'll bolt into this thing and hopefully not break as easily. Spur gear all set up with some fresh bearings on here and the new drive cup. So that's nice. What I use for diff fluid in the center diff in this truck is this stuff, 20 million. It's pretty sticky. It's almost like it's not actually a liquid. Yeah, it's like almost as stiff as silicone earplugs, but not quite. So that's what I use in the center on this, and it works pretty good. Okay, so let's get this thing on. There's a few little tricks. If you're taking this piece off, it's kind of a pain in the butt. You got to take a lot of other stuff off. Another thing, that gear, the screw that holds that in, if that's tightened up too much, it squishes the bearings together and you get some resistance. So don't over tighten that screw. That's another really important reason to make sure it's Loctited. So anyways, so here's the stock one with the steering. We'll pull that off. First thing, when you're taking this apart, you got to take a lot of stuff off because the drive shaft's in the way, so the only way to get this piece off is to take the whole front clip off, which is those four, all of these, and then the two big ones on the top, and then obviously these links, the servo link, and then you can take this up like that, and then as long as you got those two undone, then you can just slide that out. And then we can pull these off and switch all the steering stuff over. So this also comes with this little cover plate. This cover plate is supposed to protect the steering servo. I'm not sure if that's such a good idea. I have a feeling this is more likely to just get stuff stuck in there, and you'll get a rock stuck in between this and this arm anytime you slide backwards through the gravel, which sometimes happens. So I'll test it out though at first and run it in the gravel for a while and see if anything like that happens. If not, maybe it is a good thing. But I think also sliding backwards, this is likely to catch and then try to rip off, and that could cause all kinds of other problems. So not sure I'm a huge fan of this, but we'll give it a try and see how it works. Looks pretty similar. They can't make it a lot thicker really, so it wouldn't fit. We'll see. Hopefully these holes don't weaken these arms significantly, because that's where it usually breaks, is right here. And if there's a hole in the middle, that's not great. And yeah, so let's see how this steering stuff fits. Another little thing I did, I talked about this in another video, but added these little washers to the top here, and that significantly reduces the play in this whole system, and so the steering's a lot more responsive and less sloppy. Just a tiny little washers at the top here. Maybe a little more reinforcement in those cups, and just thicker instead of being cut out like that. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe this is one of those mods that's not really that useful. There's not much you really need to change on this truck anyways. Okay, so that's on there. That looks fine. All of that fitment is good. Let's see how this fits in here. Slide that on in. Oh, those holes don't line up very well. That's pretty awful, actually. Look at that. Disappointing. If I can adjust that with this, maybe. Well, then that kind of works. That's not so great though at all. Look at that. How does it look on here? Yeah, it's not bad, but it's a little off. Huh. Well, let's try putting it back together and see how it fits. All right, that's all tightened down on here, but it doesn't actually fit that great. It sort of deforms this piece a little bit, and the screws go in at a bit of an angle. It kind of corrects, but fitment is not great. We'll see how that goes in the long term, but not too impressed at this point, actually. Usually the RPM stuff seems to fit pretty perfectly, but not here. So, all right, that's all buttoned up and tightened. Fit okay, not amazing. Now let's put this cover on and see. Definitely looks cleaner. Comes with the screws you need for that, which is nice. One branding wasn't enough, they had to put it on both pieces. Now you're really repping. Fit is not so great here, RPM. Gotta say. Off, off. Come on. What's up, bros? I'm gonna try to force it on, but I don't like that. All right, so this has these little reinforcement pads, so it's not gonna get jammed down too hard. But yeah, I'm not too convinced about the need for this piece, other than it looking cool. Anyways, that's all set. It's nice and smooth. See the difference between this is some of the pieces that have been on there the whole time. This little piece is almost worn right away. And then here's the brand new chassis, a little fresher. Couple little things to remember if you ever need to do the chassis. Don't forget to take that little metal piece out. There's screws and there's a bunch of pieces, hardware and stuff that doesn't come with the chassis, so you need to make sure you save all that from your other one. This piece, the little cover for the gear, the only way to get this piece is to buy a new chassis kit. So don't lose that. But on these, I replaced them with a little bit longer ones. I did some testing with this to make sure they were just the right length. So make sure you do that. But you can fit, you know, another 2 to 3 millimeter longer screw in there. So that's good. Mesh is set. A little bit of play. That's about what you want, I think. Redid the lighting at the front here a bit because the wires kept getting broken by the body, which sits right here. So here's what I did this time. Hot glue gun for all this stuff, and then I put double shrink wrap over these. So a small shrink wrap, and then big shrink wrap over both of them, and then this conduit cover stuff over that. So let's go frickin' drive them again finally. All right, great. So next time hopefully we'll be driving. Been super busy lately, so there haven't been that many videos. Sorry, trying to keep them going, but I got a lot of stuff to deal with. Little chassis replacement, blah blah blah. Oh my god, was this whole fucking thing sideways? Ugh. Hopefully this is usable. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you later.